Hey folks, Matt Sharp here with another Pacific Angler Friday Fishing Report. Welcome to 2020. Welcome to the new year, guys. Thanks so much for the support we've had over the last 5 or 6 months with this channel, with At the Shop. I mean, every day people are coming in and saying, hey, I saw this video. It made me more prepared on the water, or just made the time more enjoyable on the water because I knew what was going on. We want to bring a lot more stuff like this to you. We're constantly sort of upping the game. So again, thanks for the support. Keep it coming, and we plan to bring you a ton more stuff in 2020. With that in mind, I'm actually filming still in 2019. It is New Year's Eve. It's about 5 o'clock. I'm going to have a beverage. I'm going to hang out with you guys for about an hour, and then I'm hitting the town, and then plan to edit this video while I recover from said New Year's festivities. But I've still got some good stuff for this week. I didn't want to miss the report 2 weeks in a row because we're getting nailed by a bunch of rain right now. And I really think after this rain, after we see what the river levels do and how they settle in, we're going to see at least the Vedder Steelhead fishery kick off and get a better gauge of how it's doing. I've got an update on that. I'm also going to talk about the Boxing Day Derby because it didn't go well, at least on the numbers front. And so we'll look at that first when we get into the report. I'm also going to touch base on the Squamish. We're going to look at numbers there. We're going to look at how the bull trout fishing and the egging's going. I also have a really fun piece on some product, but not some new product. I've got some old product, some stuff some guys brought in consignment over the last little bit. And I've got some beautiful steelhead reels, specifically hardy center pins that just came in at really fair prices, and they're all the desirable sizes. Lastly, on the video front, I got 2 videos for you, 2 that we didn't do this week. I got one from Andre on a cool fly that you definitely want to start stocking up on for the late winter season. I've also got a really important video, one that I really enjoyed. It is long, I'm going to warn you, so you've got some homework involved in it. But the Steelhead Society released a really interesting talk on steelhead. We get asked so many questions about steelhead, and it's hard to answer those questions because they are so diverse. This talk is about 35-40 minutes long if you can tough through it. I promise if you love steelhead, you're going to eat it up and not want to turn off your phone while you're watching it. But it goes over how diverse steelhead are. It looks at all the different life histories that they can possibly have. You know, when we're asking questions about, hey, is that a steelhead on the Squamish? You know, it's a small rainbow, or is it a steelhead? It's a larger rainbow. This is not going to answer those questions with sort of a silver bullet, so to say, but it's going to give you a window into how hard answering those questions are and how amazing steelhead are. We're going to talk about that more at the end of the report, and I definitely want you guys to stay tuned. Okay, guys, as always, if you want to see more reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into the fishing report. Okay, let's jump into it, guys. So how are we going to maximize our time on the water this week? And it's mildly entertaining that I say you're probably not going to be fishing at least in the next day or two, because we are getting a ton of rain. When we look at it, there's river warnings or rainfall warnings basically right across the board. And when we look up at the actual weather in, say, Squamish, you're seeing pretty good dump Wednesday, pretty good dump Thursday, and then a massive dump Friday. We've got 75 to 100 millimeters of water. Now, if you guys watch the report, you guys know that this has been forecast, maybe not this bad, but we've had some big water forecast and it hasn't come, or it's been downgraded. I would be shocked if 100 millimeters legitimately comes. If it does, we're looking at flooding. But I suspect that it won't be quite as bad. And when we also look at the temperatures, that's a good gauge. It's fairly cool. So at least on the flooding level, and then ultimately how high the river will get, a lot of this will be snow up in the mountains. And that's great for you skiers. It's also probably great for anyone trying to get out fishing. Roll it over to Saturday and Sunday, we're gonna get dumped on in there. So because I'm filming this so far out from Friday/Thursday when you guys are probably seeing this, it's watch closely. If this comes exactly as predicted tonight, you guys probably won't be fishing until Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, at least when it comes to the Squamish. Look at higher tributaries, look at smaller pieces of water when stuff like this comes, when you do want to or have a day booked and you want to get out fishing. But this is probably going to make, at least for Fridays, you guys are watching this, Saturday and Sunday, a real challenge out on most of our river systems around the Vancouver area. Flip it out to Chilliwack. See how bad they're going to get hit. And they've got the rainfall warning as well. And not as bad. And so that actually probably bodes well for you steelheaders heading out Vedder way. So keep an eye on it. When I see a report like this out in Chilliwack and I see a report out that in Squamish, we're definitely going to get rained on. That's the foregone conclusion. But it'll be interesting to see how much actually comes in Squamish if that 100 millimeters comes. So keep an eye on it. I'm going to give you guys some numbers in a second of what to gauge off and where to either stay home or go a different direction when you're going out fishing. But again, I would say if 10 Wednesday, that's not a big deal. 15, 20, 25, 30 Friday. We could be okay by Sunday depending on how that temperature goes. But again, I bet you we're going to be pushing more into the Monday, Tuesday range for good fishing. And again, the weatherman's probably going to update this and things are going to change. Long story short though, overall in the fisheries is not a bad time to get out because it's not getting too cold. So watch it. If it drops, if we get this dump of water, everything spikes up. You do want to catch it right when it's coming off that spike. Some of the best fishing of the entire year is actually in January, but only when we get the perfect conditions. And the perfect conditions would be relatively warm, coming off a mild bump of water like we're going to see Thursday, Friday with 15 to 20, 25 to 30, and then roll into maybe Sunday. If this doesn't come, that could be a good day. But plus or minus somewhere Saturday, Sunday, Monday might be okay, leaning towards Sunday, Monday. On the Squamish, like we looked at there, it's a different story. I would probably write off Saturday and write off Sunday and lean more towards Monday, Tuesday. But again, watch those river levels. And this is what you guys are going to be watching. We're going to pull up Squamish here. And the rain's just starting right now. And so you can see it's gone vertical right through here. But it's not very high, 2.0, that's nothing. It's actually still quite low on the scheme of things. When we come down here, I want to throw this out a couple dates. We're going to go back and look at this on a more broader picture. I'll throw it back to the 9th, and we can see in here where things are going. We've got that 2.4, it barely kicked up there, didn't do much. We were expecting more water in here. If you look at the report I did just before Christmas, we were expecting this to go higher, but it didn't. And so if it goes up and holds at that 2.4, 2.6 range, go fishing. It's perfect. Watch that. Watch it creep up. If it busts through, I say 3.3, you're probably out of luck. If it hits 4, don't even waste your time. And but when it starts coming down, let's say it got to a 3.2, a 3.5, if you see it drop down about a 0.5 or a 0.4, that's your time to go. So like 3.5, it drops to a 3, go. 4, you might even think about going at 3.3, 3.2, somewhere in there, and still have excellent fishing. So keep your eyes on it. Vedder is a very similar story. Watch it rise. It is low and clear right now, but definitely worth getting out. Now, when I say worth getting out, we got to go in and talk about the Steelhead Derby. Only one fish got weighed in, and that's concerning for me. I guess you got to be a guy standing there and talk to a bunch of the anglers, and I didn't have the opportunity to be out there, see how many wild fish got hooked, see how many fish got lost. There's always stories on that front. But when you look at the numbers historically, numbers in the 8 to 18 range were fairly common. When you push it back even farther, they were getting way more than that. So it's scary or sad to see that the bell curve of the migration of fish is definitely, getting more compact, and that usually means there's less fish coming. Now, it is just one day. I warn people about this every year. You could have perfect conditions and probably had that number at 10 or 12, even on a bad year, flip it around and have even worse conditions, freezing cold, super low waters, and one might be a gift. But overall, with the data that we can see going back over all of the derbies, it's really cool to see that kind of stuff for fishermen and gauge that. I'm concerned about this season. We know for a fact that ocean survivability is an issue, either it being for smolt going out or mature fish coming back in. There's a lot of factors there. But mildly concerning, something to keep our eye on. But my hope is that after this big push of rain, we see the first real wave of fish come in that usually happens around Boxing Day and maybe just delayed by a week or two. Okay, that covers the freshwater side of things, the river fishing that you want to be looking at this time of year. But for you saltwater guys, it's still definitely worth getting out. I say with the tongue-in-cheek, you probably don't want to be getting out in the next 3 or 4 days when things are quite wet. But every boat that we've been sending out is still getting fish. Sometimes it's just one, but we have not had a 0 fish day in the last 2 or 3 weeks of heading out there, which is really cool. Prawning has also been excellent, so definitely worth hitting that front. Jay's actually down at the boats right now trying to find a leak on one of them, but not a leak on the bottom, a leak on the top, and there's no better day to do it than when it's pouring rain. So if you have something like that, you might head down with a flashlight and maybe a beverage and go hunt for where the water is coming in on your boat. All right. On to the science stuff. I didn't want to leave it till the end because you guys might tune out on that, but this is one of the coolest talks that's available to us really easily. Usually you have to go to a seminar or go to an event, and I'm going to plug that. I'm going to tell you guys you should be going to these events because there's some cool information to be had out there. But the Steelhead Society has published or put on YouTube the talk that they did a few months ago with a number of biologists, and this specific talk is very, very interesting. It covers a whole bunch about the steelhead life cycles and how crazy diverse they are. You guys know when we're looking at pictures and people say, is that a steelhead? It looks like a small or a large rainbow, or, you know, is that large rainbow a steelhead? And there's always confusion there. It's really hard to know for certain. And a lot of the stuff in this talk goes over how wonderfully diverse steelhead are and how they interact with rainbows in a population. I'm going to give you guys some clips from this. I hate doing this because you should watch the whole thing. It's why modern news gets in trouble. They try to soundbite an important topic down to 10 seconds. I'm going to give you some of those 10 seconds, but I really encourage you guys to watch the whole thing. It's long, it's 45 minutes, but I promise you, sit down with a beverage, sit down on your couch, put in the earbuds, listen to this all the way through. It's super interesting stuff if you love steelhead, love river fishing, or you love salmon fishing.
You know, BC has always felt like a second home to me. I spent a lot of my childhood summers fishing up on the island, and I've been up and down the Thompson a number of times. Breaks my heart to see, you know, the petition that's been going around, the condition of those poor fish. Anyway, today I'm going to give you a talk. Basically, I'm going to talk about steelhead life histories, kind of the value of diversity to steelhead, what it means to them, and show you some of the different behaviors that fish like steelhead have evolved. The question is, was there a difference in the distribution size of males? And based on what we saw in Russia, we should see greater distribution. There should be both bigger males and smaller males. And indeed what we saw is that we have some males that have went to the ocean that are as small as 14 or 15 inches. And of course, the very largest individuals, those individuals in the high 20s, low 30s, those fish are also inevitably males. So we want to see here's the big fish, right? This is kind of the 42-inch, high 20s, big steelhead. That's a nice big buck. And if we're looking at human counterparts in the world, right, this guy is what I call the mountain. You watch the show, it's a microcosm, it's a parallel of what is happening in the world of steelhead. Because as we're all sitting in here today, I guarantee that if any of us had to get by this guy to get to the 20 girls that were behind him to mate with him, that every one of us in here would likely die. And they come back at about 16 inches in size. And every one of these fish I've caught over the years, I've probably caught 40 or 50 of them, every one has been male. So they're almost universally male. And if I look to somebody, who are they? They're Danny DeVito, right? 5 foot, 140 pounds. And the real challenge here is Danny is a sweetheart, and I know he's married and he's got kids, but I'm telling you, if there's two steelheads sitting behind a rock again and the female swims by, does she want Arnold or Danny? And this is really hard because this is basically like a bar fight, right? And none of these guys are even as big as Patrick Swayze. I mean, Charlie Sheen might get in a punch or two in a bar fight against one of these big guys, but he's really, really going to struggle. So this is what we call a genetic carryover effect. And it means that whatever is happening to the steelhead in the hatchery, there's a really strong genetic component. And these folks tried a number of different ways, right? They use good breeding practices. They reared them about as well as you can rear them. But nonetheless, you saw a decline in fitness for survival in the first generation. And then when their offspring returned, their fitness was halved compared to what their parents were. So if you can follow that over, right? I mean, if the first time you're in the hatchery at 75%, and then when your offspring come back and they only survive at 37%, what happens in the next generation? And we have an answer to all of those questions. But the trajectory doesn't look good, right? If that was your retirement account, I think you'd be pretty worried.
Now, on the Steelhead Society front, they also announced that they have another AGM coming out. It's January 25th. It might be something you guys want to tune in on because there's a bunch more talks that are going to happen at that. If you want to get educated on steelhead, if you want to go out and support a cause that's fighting for steelhead, these are the guys to donate your time and donate your money to. So I'm going to link in the description below to the Steelhead Society's webpage. And the last event that they did announce was their annual fundraiser. And it's going to be, I believe, March 5th. And it's a pub night. It's a ton of fun. There's actually some really cool stuff that goes up for auction. It's probably one of the best fishing auction fundraisers that you will see that specifically have cool flies, cool reels, cool rods. And so again, in the links down below, I'm going to have details on that. So it's a save the date for March 5th and maybe look at that January 25th date as well. On another video front, Andre has a fun one that I'm going to blurb here. I'm not going to talk too much about it. It's a very simple way that he builds fry patterns. We actually get him to do them for the shop, but it's a good one to have in your box. Maybe not right now. It's probably more in the next month and a half. So if you guys are doing some tying right now, you want to load up that box, be prepared for late winter, spring. You definitely want to try a few of these, put a few of these in almost every box I carry. Like I go to the Skagit and I have a few fry in it. I go lake fishing, I have a few fry in it. I go to obviously the Squamish and I have a few fry patterns in it. So this is definitely a good one if you guys are doing some tying over the winter months, maybe not getting out and doing as much fishing. Try this one. I'll link that up here and I'll also link it down in the descriptions for you guys. All right, on the center pin front, if you guys know, I am a collector of old fly reels. I love many different fly reels, specifically for spey rods or for single hand rods. But I also have a few center pins, and my brother-in-law Jay, he has a bunch of center pins. It's one of his favorite things, and the reason they're really cool, both on the fly reel side and the center pin side, is they're still usable today, meaning you can go out and fish with them. They may not be exactly as high performance as some of the more modern reels, but the concept of center pins and to an extent fly reels is so simple that if they were done right then, they're still going to be working now. This is a 1930s Super Silex 4-inch, and it's probably one of the more desired sizes. It's the right size, so when you're reeling it, you can pick up enough line to be fishing. It has an on and an off, but it just goes on, and we have a ratchet, which most guys don't use, or it's off, which is where they use most of them. This one's a bushing with what they call a jewel, meaning there's an agate piece in there. Beautiful reel. I don't even think the foot has been filed on that, but the long story short is I was showing you really cool reels. We just had a bunch come in. We had 4 or 5 come in on consignment, and we're going to be selling them at a pretty reasonable price for fairly desirable reels. I've got 2 jewels in different sizes. Those are like late 1940s, 1950s reels, but ideal fishing reels if you want something cool. And then we've got 2 supers. And the Super Silex, like I said, in 2 sizes, a 4-inch and then a smaller one. Probably the most desired fishing reel when it comes to cool collectible center pins. So I wanted to let you guys know about that. Come on down, check them out. They're fun to look at, fun to spin, and definitely something worth fishing or even just putting up on a shelf and looking at every once in a while. But we do encourage you to fish them because they're super cool. Well, guys, that wraps it up for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys can use some of this stuff to maximize your time on the water, as well as increase your knowledge when it comes to the science behind the fishing. As always, you guys want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next week's Friday Fishing Report.